I want to share with you a story I uncovered while visiting one of New Zealand's most renowned tourist locations. The Buried Village is one of my country's most visited archaeological sites and reveals the harrowing story of one of the worst natural disasters ever experienced by this young nation, the 1886 eruption of Mount Tarawera. Now the uncovered remains of old foundations, haphazard brickwork, and a trove of items uncovered from the 19th century, this location was once the village of Te Wairoa, established as a Christian mission and situated near what used to be considered as the eighth wonder of the world, the glorious naturally formed pink and white terraces. In the early hours of June 10th, 1886, the people of Te Wairoa were startled awake by a sequence of earthquakes. Around 2 a.m. came an even greater jolt as the earth heaved, followed by furious explosions and 4 more hours of rocks hurtling through the night sky, suffocating ash and merciless mud pummeling the once peaceful village. In the aftermath, Te Wairoa, along with several smaller villages in the vicinity, were swallowed by hot, heavy mud and ash. The majestic pink and white terraces were obliterated, and the surrounding landscape was transformed forever. Approximately 150 people were killed, but the exact number of casualties has never really been discovered. The apocalyptic nightmare of that dark morning is itself a true tale that deserves to be retold. While such disasters have occurred all around the world throughout its turbulent history, and the loss of human life over that span of time has been insurmountable, the tragedy of Tarawera seems to me especially sad because New Zealand was then in its infancy as a nation, unprepared for such enormous calamity, and to have the beautiful terraces annihilated, cast into the realm of myth, was a significant loss. However, there is another tale to tell that took place before the mountain spewed its fury, the story of the Phantom Waka, or Canoe. Situated by the Angry Mountain was and still is the immaculate Lake Tarawera, and it was upon this lake that on 31st of May in 1886, a phantom Māori war canoe, or waka, was seen to be speeding silently across the waters in the morning winter mist. A war canoe that should not have been there at all. One of the witnesses of this mystical omen was Mrs. Cece, who later described the event. After sailing for some time, we saw in the distance a large boat, looking glorious in the mist and the sunlight. It was full of Maoris, some standing up, and it was near enough for me to see the sun glittering on the paddles. The boat was hailed but returned no answer. We thought so little of it at the time that Dr. Ralph did not even turn to look at the canoe, and until our return to Te Wairoa in the evening, we never gave it another thought. However, to the local Maori population, the presence of the waka was an omen that heralded a coming disaster. Mrs. Cece went on to say, "Then to our surprise, we found the Maoris in great excitement and heard from McRae, a permanent resident, and other Europeans that no such boat had ever been seen on the lake." That same morning, another boat full of tourists had also seen the same Phantom Waka gliding upon the misty waters. The ghostly craft seemed tangible enough that the tourists could clearly distinguish the occupants, 2 to a row, either paddling their craft or standing with their heads bowed, with their hair plumed with feathers, as in death. The Maori witnesses, at the time, were convinced that these were souls being whisked across the lake to the mountain of the dead, and yet in living memory, no such craft had ever been seen on this lake. The story quickly spread throughout the community of Te Wairoa, where the Maori population received it as an omen of coming disaster, along with the sign that on the same morning the waters of the lake had risen suddenly and then subsided in only minutes. It was as if impending calamity had taken a deep breath and was poised to blow its dismay hard upon the land. And 11 days after the sighting, the mountain, in a terrifying display of fire, ash, and mud, spewed its wrath upon 3 villages, including Te Wairoa, destroying their tranquility through a night of hell upon the earth. It would be all too easy to write the sighting of the ghost canoe off as superstition, or simply as a way of posthumously making sense of such terrible disaster. And yet the canoe was seen by no less than 2 tourist boats containing not just locals and indigenous peoples, but travellers who were themselves ignorant of the Maori beliefs or the significance of the headdresses worn by the boat's occupants, let alone the warlike nature of the vessel. What do you make of this sighting? Have you been witness to a ghostly vessel, travelling where it ought not to be? Have you perhaps seen an omen, a strange event that seemed to herald a coming tragedy? Please share your tale with me at tellyourtalehere@gmail.com so that I can tell your tale in a future video. And until next time, be careful which boat you ride in.